Let's run it back.
Oh my
Match
goodness.
week 17. I don't know why I'm excited. It's a rubbish weekend for me, but we get more Prem. We get more Prem, and
more
we can be
Prem.
happy about that.
That's the way. That's a great way to put it, isn't
Yeah.
it? Isn't it? More Prem. We're excited about it. Another week. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on. You got the updates for us with the scoreline, and I know you've just been excited to have a week like this so that you could go say it. You could be like, oh my gosh, I'm back. But take them away. What did you do?
And this was the week that I was waiting for to get right back into it.
Mhm.
I take the week 6-2.
Yeah.
An absolute rubbish performance from Baker last week.
It's bad.
Lets me right back into it. Brings our total scores to 102. Brock to 100. So he still
Yep.
got. You
I
still
have
got
a
the
cushion.
two. You
I have
still
a
got
cushion.
2 points.
It's,
But you're feeling the pressure now.
well, no, and it's a learning experience. It's too much waffling for me. I got a little too comfortable waffling, and so now we got to get it. We got to rein it back in.
Rein it
But
back
that
in.
will take us into this week's fixtures.
Let's do it.
I believe we get a Friday kickoff. We get Nottingham Forest at home against the Spurs. Is this just a perfect opportunity for Cooper to just re-win the job? Just re-cement it. They're at home. They could beat top six, big six side.
Yep.
And I just think it's a perfect little opportunity for it.
And it is an opportunity, right? He's got the pressure on. A win like that to keep his job, I mean, it's huge.
Yeah.
But it's also a very, very tough ask.
Yeah.
Right? Spurs have been in bad form. They get a win last week.
Yeah.
And
A big win.
A statement win.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're feeling a lot of confidence being able to go against a team that's really, really struggling to get goals, to get points.
Right.
And so it will be an interesting one, and this could be the week that Steve Cooper loses his job.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's two sides of the pendulum, right? It's Forest that are fighting to keep their coach, and Spurs who are clawing. They have this flying start, and now all of a sudden you see him peter back down the table.
Yep.
I have Spurs winning this game 2-1. I just think that you're just going to start to see the engine start to click again.
Yep.
Right? I think the way that they play, there's goals in them, and I think they'll find a way to win this one as well.
We'll go 3-1 Tottenham. Bring us to the next game.
This takes us to our next kickoff. Bournemouth at home against Luton Town. What would normally be like this is relegation battle fixture. Two pretty fun sides. Obviously, Luton still further down the table, but Bournemouth have been flying.
They've been so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely batter Man United 3-0 last week. I mean, what a performance from the Cherries there.
Yeah.
Luton have back-to-back outstanding performances.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they come away with 0 points, but back-to-back performances against Arsenal and Man City is still very, very impressive, and it gives you a sense of belief as a fan, if you're a fan of Luton.
Yeah, because they've kind of just been our waffling punchel bag early in the season.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 3 points, it's 3 points. They've made those sides go in there and work for it. Both Arsenal, City, obviously they get a point
But
off
this
Liverpool.
game is not at the Kenny.
No, it's not at the Kenny.
Bournemouth in form.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Bournemouth 2-0 here.
Bournemouth 2-0, I think it's a really good shout. I see it finishing 3-1.
3-1.
Maybe Luton just a little header. I don't know. 3-1, Bournemouth.
There you go.
Next fixture, we get Chelsea at home against Sheffield United. I feel like there's a cycle that we're stuck in. Every 4 weeks or so, we're saying this is the perfect fixture for Chelsea to get back on track, right?
Yep.
And this is another one of those. Chelsea at home against Sheffield United.
And the reality is, I was having a conversation the other day, and Chelsea is the side who is they are the most hot cold. Like they don't even go in like on a roller coaster. It's every single game is a different Chelsea. And to not even have consistency, it's not like you're just like, oh, we're in a bad run of form, we'll pick it back up. It's like one game, we're back.
Yeah.
The next game, we're
finished.
It's like you never really know what you're gonna get with this Chelsea side. The reality is their last month of fixtures has been very, very difficult part of their schedule.
Yeah.
They're coming out of a bunch of hard fixtures, and they're gonna start having to pick up points.
Yeah.
Sheffield get their first win under their new manager last week.
Yeah. New manager bounce.
We talked about it. So it'll be an interesting one, but Chelsea will get the job done here. 3-1.
3-1 Chelsea. I completely agree. It's weird. We look at all these big results for Chelsea, and what were they all? They were massive draws. It's like, Chelsea was so up for it. They drew the game.
Yep.
And you're right. This is a stretch of games where they have to pick up points. And at least in this picture, I think they will. 3-0 Chelsea.
3-0. There you go.
Takes us into our next one here. We've got City at the Etihad against Crystal Palace.
Wow. And both of these teams are not in good form, right? Palace are starting to get antsy with their inability to score goals.
Right.
And honestly, Man City need a performance to be confident in again.
Yeah.
Obviously, they are able to fight back from being down 1-0 at halftime at the Kenny, but they still need a performance to get their belief back.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because you look at the side and you're like, where are things going wrong? Not having Kevin De Bruyne, it's really starting to show in these tighter games where you just need that moment of magic. And it just feels, you look all around the field, they're missing Gundogan now, who would supply that when they needed it.
Yep.
And you're just like, man, you're missing that moment of brilliance from City to unlock teams that are maybe a little bit harder to unlock.
And the reality is too, they hadn't had Rodri for so long in that stage of losing games. And
pivotal.
It's huge. It's huge. And so Rodri comes back into the side, they pick up 3 points.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's really, I think, important to note. And I think they'll just dominate here.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 3-0 Man City.
3-0 City, yeah. And I would 3-1. I see it finishing. Palace struggles to score goals, but 3-1.
They always
garbage time. City loves to give up garbage time. All right. That takes us to our next fixture. Newcastle-Fulham. Come on, Fulham. Wow. Let's talk on Newcastle at home. They've just been so solid at home.
They've been so good at home.
We've seen it across the board. They're really getting through this, all things considered, tough stretch of games for them as well.
Yeah.
Where you not only have big games, but also a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it's starting to wear on the side. Obviously, injuries galore.
Yep.
They're just throwing the same side out week in, week out.
And just hoping, aren't they?
And they're playing against a really informed Fulham team.
Yeah, it's a tough one to predict. Fulham go back-to-back 5-0 dominant performances at the Cottage. The first one against Forest, you're like, okay, that could be a fluke. It could have just been Forest being so bad. Fulham kind of hit their stride. But to do it against a West Ham side who is in form and to completely frustrate the heck out of them was just honestly thrilling to watch.
Right.
Like, it was very, very impressive. It could have been more, to be completely honest, watching that game. Could have been more. And everybody's buzzing around the fan.
You should be.
Club,
this doesn't come by that often.
You don't see it.
It's not like you get this week in, week out. This is real deal. And it's coming off the back of, where are our goals coming from? We can't score to.
Wow.
Something's clicking.
Now 16 goals in the last 4 games for Fulham. After only scoring, I think it was 10 in the first 12.
In that area.
Something like that. And so, I mean, that is just remarkable. And I'm going to go for it.
Go for it.
2-1 Fulham.
Wow.
Newcastle squad is thinning. Trippier is going to be out on suspension for 5 yellows. I just think there's something special brewing over there with the Cottagers.
Yeah, and for me, the important thing and what's guiding my decision here is that those 2 fixtures from Fulham were at home. Cottage, it could be considered a game changer. It's a unique stadium. This is at St. James Park. And if there's one thing I've done this year, and it hasn't failed me yet, lean into St. James Park.
True.
2-0 Newcastle.
2-0 Newcastle.
That takes us to our next one here. We've got Burnley facing off against Everton. This is going to be a hard one to predict. I can't even lie.
It's a tough one. Everton have been playing some really, really good soccer since the 10-point deduction.
Yeah.
They're
fired up. They're fired
up. They're pinging it. And to get a 2-0 win against Chelsea was just thrilling. It really was.
You need something like that.
It was special. They're out of the relegation zone, which is just insane to think about.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd be in 10th. Without that 10 points, they're in 10th place, which is just crazy.
Doesn't seem right.
The last couple seasons, they've been a relegation team.
Right.
They still are this year.
Yeah.
But without that 10 points,
different context. Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And that's just crazy to think about. Burnley continuously struggling.
Yeah. Continuing. Yeah.
And so I'm going to go Everton here.
Yeah.
Go Everton, 2-0. They'll get the job done.
Wow. Yeah. And I also want to lean into Everton. Burnley is one of those really spotty teams where they'll just have one game where they rip it, they're pinging, and then the next 6 they just won't. And so I think we've caught him in that little stretch. 2-1 Everton.
2-1 Everton. Bring us to the next fixture.
This takes us to the Emirates. We've got Arsenal facing off against Brighton.
A very, very good fixture here.
Yeah, I think this is a fun little fixture. With the context of Brighton this season, it's maybe not as exciting as if you would have looked at the beginning of the year, like, oh, this is Brighton, Arsenal.
But Brighton really, they've petered off, but they are still in a European place.
Yeah,
they are still playing really, really good football, and Arsenal want a response, don't they?
Yeah.
Speaking to that result
they
at the
need
weekend.
a response. Obviously, you get the controversy with the disallowed goal.
Yep, right at the end.
There's just polarizing. I mean, I remember, I can even speak for myself, just the frustration with recent weeks where we feel hard done by VAR. It's hard to just pull yourself out of that, especially in moments where there's just so much passion. You know, you get it, and then it's get taken away. But I'm not even going to speak about that there. That loss was on Arsenal. Had plenty of chances to win that game. Plenty of opportunities in front of goal, and we're not vicious enough. What's one thing that we've seen from City in the past? As soon as they get a half chance, man, it's in the back of the net.
Yep.
You have to be cutthroat in this league, especially when you're away at Villa Park. That's how I boil up. It's frustration for me as a fan of we had an opportunity to win that game in the way that we played, but in the final third we were not potent enough, and that cost us 3 points.
Yeah, there you have it.
Yeah.
We'll go ahead and get to your prediction then.
Yeah, we can hop into my prediction. Last time out, Brighton beats Arsenal at home. De Zerbi ripping a knee slide on the Emirates carpet. Shambolic from him. And so I think you're going to see a big response from the Arsenal. You're going to see a 4-0 win at the Emirates. Arsenal.
4-0 prediction. It seems crazy.
It seems crazy.
I'll go 3-1 Arsenal and take us to the next one.
That's going to throw us out to Brentford at home against Villa.
And man, oh man, Villa are the team in form.
They are.
They're just absolutely flying. They're third in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And they're just coming off of good win after good win.
Good win after good win. Big win.
Brentford feel on the other side of it where they feel like they're going downhill.
Yeah.
They lose their star player.
Coming off the tracks, yeah.
Right? And they're just struggling to get results. And losing last week against a relegation side is not ideal.
No.
Not ideal at all. And so they are wanting to get back on track.
Yeah.
But this is a tough ask.
And it's hard to get back on track when you're missing your two biggest players.
Yep.
And I just think that's such a huge factor for Brentford.
Yeah.
A talisman and then really a creator in Mbeumo. He does so much for the side.
And you've gotten it really well there. At the beginning of the season, Brentford were stringing together some good results, and everyone's like, maybe they don't need Tony. But as the season wears on, you start to realize how big of a miss he is. And so I'm going to go ahead and throw my prediction out there. 3-1 Villa. They'll get the job done.
Well, I have this being a little bit closer. I just, more and more, I'm beginning to appreciate the more football I consume, just how amazing the Premier League is with home field advantage. Like every weekend, man, those fan bases are up for it. It's still going to be a Villa win, but I think it's a tighter margin. 2-1 Villa.
Yep.
This takes us, they'll keep it close. Takes us into our next fixture. We've got West Ham at home against Wolves. Not blowing as many bubbles after last weekend, but
they're back at home.
Yeah, they're back at home.
And Wolves are always a tough ask.
Yeah.
Right. They're always a tough team to play against. They're cagey. They keep it tight. Right. But West Ham really need a response.
Yeah.
I was blown away by how leaky they were in the back. I mean, not just I know Fulham were playing good football, but they were just leaky. There was holes galore, and there was frustration everywhere.
Yeah.
And they have a huge game coming up. We're filming this before their big game against Freiburg in the Europa League.
Right.
But huge game going into the weekend, and so tired legs. I think it's going to play a factor here.
Yeah.
Last weekend, their only player that was working 110% the whole game, Bowen. And he was just working so hard. But I'm gonna sit on the fence. I'm gonna go 1-1.
1-1. West Ham, Wolves. I have a hard time sitting on the fence with this one. I think West Ham understand what they need.
Yeah.
I think it's very crystal clear. They need a response, and they need it now. I have West Ham winning this game 2-0.
Yeah. And I totally understand where you're going with there. I just think the tired legs will get to them coming off of the emotional fixture Thursday night.
Yeah.
So
we'll have to see how this plays out.
Yep.
This takes us, wow. Game of the week.
Come on, bring it on.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's one of those ones, it was so easy for us to throw up as game of the week just with the context of these two clubs.
Yep.
Liverpool at Anfield against United.
And a terrible week for United.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They get knocked out of the Champions League, knocked out
Really
of
poor.
Europe in general.
Yeah.
I mean, when Galatasaray and Copenhagen are finished above you, it's not very good place to be.
Yeah.
And then coming off the loss from last week against Bournemouth, there feels like there's a lot of tension, a lot of pressure going into this one, and you're playing the league leaders.
Yeah.
In the hardest place to play in what would some would say all of Europe.
Yeah, and it's so funny that you can go from having Premier League Player of the Month and Premier League Manager of the Month to now Premier League Manager of the Month job under fire, right? Like there's already whispers, a really disappointing European campaign, first of all.
Yeah.
And it just feels like a lack of really support around the fan base around him. You know, usually this is the time you see everybody uniting.
Yep.
And there's still so many questions about where United's heading. I also want to touch on Liverpool. I think that they've just been really brilliant this season. I think they played wonderful football. And more than that, you've seen an edge to Liverpool that you didn't really see last season. These late wins, these gritty wins. Back to back. And that's what marks a Premier League campaign is. Can you do it when it matters most? Can you find ways to get extra points?
And they are finding ways. Like
Yeah,
they are scratching and clawing to get 3 points in crazy ways.
Yeah.
Like you do not see a lot of the results they've gotten from that team last year. Right?
No, yeah.
I mean, you even throw it back to earlier in the season where they with a red card get 2.
To get 2, yeah.
Right. You throw it to
unbelievable.
Down 3-2 against Fulham. You throw it to down at Palace, and it's just these results. They keep getting 3 points, and that, like you said, that's what marks a good team. Yeah. It's not necessarily that they're in the positions to claw, but that's the reality of the Prem, right? It's hard to win.
It is hard
week in, week out, and they've been finding a way, and that's why at this point in time they're at the top of the table.
Yeah.
And so, who is it to predict first this week?
I believe it was me that went first last week.
Yep.
I went first last week.
I would agree. You did go first last week. I remember that. So it's me this week. I'm gonna just go 3-1 Liverpool. Seems super safe, but honestly, it's the scoreline that's screaming out to me. Yeah,
and for me, it's one of those ones where I've even felt this way with United before, where you know they just look rubbish. They look rubbish, and then these big games, all of a sudden you see them do something crazy. Now, I'm not going to go on the completely opposite side of the pendulum, but that's all to say I think this will be a bigger test for Liverpool than many believe. I think this will be a closer game than many people believe.
Yep.
It's an emotionally charged game. It's going to be 2-1 Liverpool.
2-1 Liverpool. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, sound off in the comments on that one.
Yeah.
We want to hear your Liverpool United predictions.
Liverpool United.
What are your thoughts on Ten Hag? What are your predictions going forward?
Yeah.
And so, go ahead and sound off.
Sound off.
Well, there you go. Thank you guys for watching.
Cheers.